Welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we take a monumental stack of articles, research papers, and proprietary notes, filter out the noise, and hand you the pure distilled insight.
And today, we are cracking open a company that touches, well, literally 1 in 5 working Americans.
It's a corporate giant whose name you probably know, but whose epic journey from paper ledgers to cloud infrastructure you almost certainly don't.
That's absolutely right. Our subject today is Automatic Data Processing, Inc., or, as everyone knows them, ADP. This is a deep dive into an organization that has, essentially built the modern infrastructure for employment in the United States and increasingly globally.
And the mission, as we unpack all these sources, is a fundamental one. We really need to understand the true magnitude of ADP's transformation.
It's quite a story.
We are tracing the path of a company founded 76 years ago to, get this, manually process paper paychecks
Manually? Yeah.
into a cloud-based, multinational technology behemoth. One that is so deeply integrated into the American labor system that it has become a vital, if changing, source of national economic data.
And the scale is what grabs you immediately. When most people think of ADP, they think of the portal, right?
Yeah.
Where they check their hours or deductions.
Sure, yeah.
But if we look at the high-level identity, based on the source material, ADP is an American multinational provider of cloud-based human resources management, HRM payroll processing, and, this is crucial, professional employer organization, or PEO, services.
That PEO service component is the key. It's the differentiator that elevates them beyond just being a simple software vendor.
It absolutely is.
And we need to spend some real time analyzing the strategic implications of that decision, which we will, but let's anchor the discussion first with just the sheer numbers.
The scope is staggering. The benchmark they hit as far back as 1985 and have maintained since is processing paychecks for approximately 20% of the entire U.S. workforce.
20%.
Think about that level of deep foundational penetration. If you work in the U.S., chances are ADP has touched your paycheck at some point.
And that reach translates directly into a massive financial infrastructure. Looking at the fiscal year 2025 data we have, ADP employs around 67,000 people worldwide.
Right. And their revenues for FY 2025 clocked in at a massive $20.6 billion.
We are not talking about a startup or a niche player here. We are discussing what is essentially an economic utility.
And that financial context is why they're viewed not just as a payroll service, but as a crucial component of the financial infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's what cements their place as a major holding within both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 indexes.
Okay, so our task now is to go back and connect those really humble manual beginnings in 1949 New Jersey with this current status as a global data architect.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this journey, starting right at the beginning. It feels almost contradictory to discuss a modern technology giant that started with manual labor.
It really does.
But that is precisely the foundational story of ADP. The company's story begins back in 1949, nestled in Paterson, New Jersey.
And the sources confirm the founders were two brothers, Henry Taub and Joe Taub. They originally incorporated the business under the name Automatic Payrolls, Inc.
And the core detail that is, almost impossible to imagine in a modern context is that it began its existence as a purely manual payroll processing business.
Manual.
Yeah.
When we say that, you really have to paint a picture. This was 1949. The post-war economic boom meant small and medium businesses were growing like crazy.
All right.
But processing payroll was a nightmare of complexity. You had federal taxes, state taxes, FICA deductions, local taxes, all changing constantly.
And companies were doing this by hand.
By hand. They had dedicated clerical staff using paper ledgers, mechanical calculators, and literally printing checks one by one. Errors were rampant, and it took huge amounts of time.
So the genius of the Taub brothers was not technology, at least not at first. It was systematic efficiency.
Exactly. They were selling reliability, accuracy, and most importantly, time savings. When they called themselves Automatic Payrolls, it didn't mean automation via machinery.
It meant they were a reliable, systematic engine.
Yes, an engine that could handle these complex calculations reliably for hundreds of clients. They centralized the knowledge in the process.
That systematic approach allowed them to scale so quickly, which then attracted a crucial third partner who would later become very famous.
Frank Lautenberg.
Frank Lautenberg. He joined the brothers in the company's infancy, bringing a powerful skill set to the burgeoning enterprise.
And Lautenberg's early impact was immediate and measurable. Our sources note he successfully served in sales and marketing. He was a driving force for client acquisition.
He wasn't just a salesman, though. He quickly earned his status, becoming a full-fledged partner with Henry and Joe Taub in 1957.
And this is where we hit that fascinating aha moment, connecting corporate history to political history. Lautenberg didn't just stay in a back-office role.
Not at all.
He was a core executive. He served as president and CEO until 1982. And the reason he stepped away that year
Is because he successfully ran for and was elected to the United States Senate from New Jersey.
where he served for decades. It's an incredible transition.
That really is remarkable. It highlights that the skills required to build a massive, complex data processing firm organization, understanding regulatory detail, large-scale systematic thinking, were highly transferable to a political career on the national stage.
It gives you a deeper appreciation for the caliber of person who built this early enterprise.
So they had the systematic efficiency down, but they knew they couldn't scale forever using human hands. The pivotal shift came in 1961.
This is the moment. This is when they stopped being just a service company and truly became a technology company.
They officially changed the name to Automatic Data Processing, Inc., ADP.
And that name change was more than just rebranding. It signaled a complete shift in methodology. They decisively moved beyond those manual processes.
They embraced the first wave of automation.
Right, which meant leveraging punch card machines for input, specialized check printing machines for output, and critically centralized mainframe computers for bulk processing.
This transition introduced them to the concept of batch processing.
Yes, that's a great point. In the old manual days, the data was continuous, flowing through ledgers. With mainframes in 1961, ADP's clients would submit all their data at once, the batch.
And ADP's giant machines would process it overnight or over the weekend.
They were finally living up to the data processing part of their name, not just the automatic part.
And 1961 was truly a transformational year because that is when they took the company public.
And the IPO figures. They provide a fantastic initial benchmark for just how modest their starting point was, especially compared to where they ended up.
At the time of the IPO, ADP had only 300 clients.
300. And they employed 125 people with annual revenues around, US $400,000?
That's a small operation, even for the early 60s. It just underscores how quickly that technology pivot allowed them to explode.
And that explosion didn't just stay regional. They showed incredible strategic foresight by expanding internationally almost immediately.
The sources confirm that they established a subsidiary in the United Kingdom just 4 years later, in 1965.
Which is an incredibly early move. It demonstrated that the need for reliable, centralized payroll processing was a global business problem, not just an American one.
Their public presence also shifted as they grew. After the 1961 IPO, they spent time on the American Stock Exchange.
But by 1970, their growing market cap and prestige led them to transition their stock to the New York Stock Exchange, a classic signal of having arrived in the financial big leagues.
And then, much later, in 2008, reflecting their evolving identity as a technology-focused HRM provider rather than just a financial processor, they switched again.
The Nasdaq Global Select Market. This progression of listings really tells a story of a company constantly adapting its public image to match its technological reality.
So once ADP had made that critical pivot to technology in the 1960s, the subsequent decades were really just characterized by one thing: relentless scaling.
Exactly. They stopped being just a regional service and became a national utility.
The $1 billion revenue mark is always that definitive sign that a company has gone from big to massive.
And ADP crossed that line by 1985. This is the point in their history where that key metric processing paychecks for about 20% of the U.S. workforce cemented their status.
They were no longer just offering a service.
No, they were a fundamental infrastructural component of the American labor market.
But that growth was also fueled by a key and often overlooked financial mechanic that underpins the entire payroll industry, especially in the days before real-time transfers.
Yes. Float revenue.
Exactly.
This is a critical piece of the puzzle that often gets missed in a surface-level analysis. Float is the interest income generated by a company holding client funds.
So they collect the money from the client on, say, a Friday.
And they don't have to disperse that money to employees or tax authorities until the following Monday or Tuesday.
And when you're processing payroll for 20% of the U.S. workforce, you are holding billions of dollars in funds at any given time.
Billions. And if those funds are parked in short-term, ultra-safe treasury bills or money markets, the interest earned on that float is essentially pure profit.
A zero-risk, high-volume revenue stream.
Precisely. For decades, particularly when interest rates were higher, Float revenue was a massive, reliable profit engine for ADP. It was money earned without the need to sell more software or provide more service hours.
So it effectively subsidized their technological investment and their expansion.
That's right. This mechanic explains how they could afford to scale their system so quickly.
I see. So the billion-dollar revenue in 1985 wasn't just service fees. A significant portion was just smart financial management of money that wasn't technically theirs yet.
Correct. As their client base and assets grew, the float revenue pool just grew exponentially. It was the rocket fuel.
But, as you mentioned, their later pivot into PEO services would have changed that revenue mix.
It did. The PEO model is more about charging comprehensive administrative fees and assumption of risk, rather than relying solely on the float, especially in a world where payment transfers are becoming instantaneous.
That makes perfect sense. Now let's revisit their current financial footprint to see the modern scale.
The confirmed FY 2025 figures, they show a fortress balance sheet. Revenue, US $20.6 billion.
Operating income at US $5.41 billion. Net income is US $4.08 billion.
And beyond the income statement, look at the assets. Total assets stand at US $53.4 billion, backed by total equity of US $6.19 billion.
These aren't figures that represent a simple service organization.
No, they represent a global financial platform with the kind of stability and firepower needed to constantly acquire and integrate massive technological systems, which is exactly what they do.
And what's equally telling is the sustained prestige and recognition they've earned. Financial scale is one thing, but consistency speaks volumes about management and performance.
They are consistently ranked among the corporate elite. In 2020, for example, the sources note they were ranked 227 on the Fortune 500 list.
And sustaining a spot in the top 250 of the American corporate landscape requires extraordinary operational discipline and consistent customer retention.
And beyond sheer size, they are lauded for organizational quality. ADP has been included on Fortune magazine's World's Most Admired Companies list for an incredible 14 consecutive years.
14 years. That speaks to the perception of their long-term strategy, the quality of their executive team, and their ability to stay financially sound through multiple economic cycles.
And critically, in the modern era, corporate responsibility and culture are key indicators of sustained success. ADP has been recognized by Diversity Inc. as one of the top companies for diversity and inclusion in the United States for 11 consecutive years.
It's that trifecta: financial stability, operational excellence, and a commitment to corporate culture that shows a company that successfully modernized its internal values alongside its technology.
That sustained excellence is truly the marker of a company that transitioned successfully from a paper-based business to a 21st century cloud provider.
So how do you maintain that kind of scale and consistent admiration in an industry constantly being disrupted by new tech startups?
It's an acquisition strategy, a ruthless, smart, and often expensive one.
ADP's history is a masterclass in buying the expertise and technology they needed to maintain their leadership.
And the single most crucial strategic shift in terms of business model diversification came in the 1990s. The entry into the professional employer organization, or PEO, space.
This was not a minor pivot. It changed the very nature of their relationship with their clients.
Absolutely. Before PEO, ADP was a vendor. You pay them to run payroll. With the PEO model, they become a co-employer.
A co-employer. So that means they're responsible for HR administration, benefits, compliance, and crucially, they assume certain employment risks.
Which elevates their service fee structure dramatically.
But it also elevates their risk. Moving to a PEO model shifts the legal and operational risk away from the client and onto ADP. It exposes them to massive liabilities.
So why take that risk?
Well, the revenue potential must be enormous, but also it locks in the client far more effectively than a simple payroll contract.
Exactly. Once ADP is handling all your HR infrastructure and liability, leaving them becomes exponentially harder. It's a stickier, more valuable client relationship.
So that move defined their late 90s and was supported by a barrage of related acquisitions.
Right, but they were always focused on technological superiority, even decades earlier.
You can track that focus back to the 1970s. In 1974, ADP acquired Time Sharing Limited, TSL, which is a pioneering online computer services company.
And the very next year, they acquired Cybernetics.
These weren't acquisitions to optimize batch processing.
No, these were acquisitions aimed at embracing the cutting edge of online interactive computing services. This shows they were already looking past the mainframe-only era toward network services, laying the groundwork for the eventual transition to cloud infrastructure decades later.
The mid-90s saw their global reach and diversification ramp up significantly, which was necessary to support that emerging PEO model.
Right. In 1995, they acquired the German company Autonom, and later that same year, the human resource services company GSI. They were securing critical local knowledge and market share.
And it wasn't just private enterprise. A very notable acquisition occurred in 1998, the UK-based Chessington Computer Center.
And this center supplied administration services directly to the UK government. This move gave ADP high-level exposure and a foothold in complex, high-security public sector administration, a huge mark of trust and capability.
Okay, let's jump forward to the late 2010s, where we see ADP adapting to the biggest structural shift in the modern economy, the explosion of the contingent workforce and the gig economy.
This period, specifically 2017 and 2018, contains the most telling acquisitions about ADP's forward-looking strategy. They recognized that the traditional W-2 employee model was no longer the only game in town.
Early in 2017, they acquired the Marcus Buckingham Company, TMBC.
That acquisition expanded their talent portfolio, moving them deeper into performance management, succession planning, and strategic HR software services, far beyond just calculating payroll.
Then, that same year in October, they acquired Global Cash Card, a digital payments facilitator.
That acquisition signaled an understanding that a modern, fragmented workforce needed flexible payment solutions. They moved beyond just issuing a direct deposit file to managing the actual mechanics of digital payment.
But the single most strategic acquisition for the modern labor market was in January 2018, WorkMarket.
WorkMarket. It's a software platform company specializing in helping businesses manage the entire life cycle of freelancers, contractors, and consultants, the 1099 economy.
The WorkMarket acquisition was brilliant and, you could argue, necessary.
I think it was necessary. If 20% of the U.S. workforce uses ADP for W-2 paychecks, they recognize that the total share of labor, including project-based contractors, was rapidly increasing.
So if they didn't capture the 1099 contingent workforce, that 20% market share would inevitably shrink.
It was a necessary defensive move that also turned into an aggressive growth strategy. By acquiring a platform designed specifically for managing independent workers, ADP future-proofed its offering.
They recognized that the definition of work itself was changing, and they bought the platform to manage the new definition.
And later that same year, they bolstered their global capacity by acquiring Celergo, a global payroll management service company. This complemented their ability to handle standard W-2 employees, contractors, and all the complexity that comes with operating across multiple international jurisdictions.
More recently, the focus has shifted even further toward workflow automation and integrated cloud suites,
which indicates the competition is now about efficiency and user experience.
In 2023, ADP acquired Sora, a workflow automation tool designed to streamline those back-end repetitive HR processes.
And most recently, in October 2024, they continued this strategic focus with the acquisition of WorkForce Software,
a management services provider focused on optimizing employee work schedules and labor management.
And what's noteworthy is the immediate financial confirmation that followed. The sources highlight that ADP subsequently raised its annual revenue growth forecast specifically because of this deal,
which proves that these acquisitions are directly designed to drive fundamental, immediate growth in their projections.
It's a constant, disciplined effort to acquire capabilities rather than try to build them from scratch, ensuring they always stay ahead of the curve.
Now, for a company to grow and refine its identity over 7 decades, it often requires some dramatic restructuring.
Yes, and ADP went through 2 massive structural changes, the spin-offs of major divisions, that fundamentally changed its corporate identity and market valuation. It solidified their commitment to HR and payroll.
These spin-offs are crucial because they demonstrate management's willingness to shed successful but non-core assets to focus resources and capital on their primary strategic mission.
The first major one was Broadridge Financial Solutions in 2007.
Broadridge originated as the ADP Brokerage Service Group,
which was a substantial, highly specialized technology business that provided services to the financial services industry, facilitating things like shareholder communications and securities processing.
And its removal was a major event on the balance sheet. The sources confirm that the departure of the brokerage service group removed about $2 billion from ADP's total yearly revenue.
That was a clear, unambiguous message to the market. We're focusing our energy on human capital management, not financial brokerage technology.
And for the individual shareholder, The distribution mechanism ensured they received direct value.
Right. Shareholders of record on March 23, 2007, received 1 share of Broadridge common stock for every 4 shares of ADP common stock they held.
So it was a transfer of ownership of a valuable asset, even if it temporarily made the remaining ADP footprint smaller in revenue terms.
The second, and arguably more impactful for the company's identity, was the creation of CDK Global, LLC, in 2014.
This was formerly known as ADP Dealer Services, a large division that provided specialized technology services to automotive dealerships and vehicle manufacturers globally.
It's easy to forget that ADP was once a massive player in auto technology.
And just like the HR division, this automotive tech unit was built through smart, targeted acquisitions over years.
That's right. The source material details this methodical buildup. They focused on acquiring complementary services that locked in the dealerships. For instance, in 2006, they acquired BZ Results,
An innovator in the automotive tech space, valued at $125 million at the time.
and BZ Results had won Auto Success Magazine's Innovative Company of the Year award in 2005.
They also expanded this division geographically that same year by acquiring Carriage Computer Co., Ltd.
Which was a leading dealer management system or DMS provider, primarily operating in the UK.
And a dealer management system, a DMS, is essentially the operational backbone of a dealership, right?
It is. It handles everything from inventory management and sales tracking to service scheduling and financing paperwork. Incredibly complex, specialized software.
They rounded out the portfolio in 2010 by acquiring Cobalt, an automotive marketing company focused on digital outreach.
So by 2014, the Dealer Services division was a comprehensive, vertically integrated solution for the entire auto retail lifecycle.
Yet, despite its success, the focus was becoming too diluted.
And the final move came swiftly. In April 2014, ADP announced a reorganization that included layoffs within the Dealer Services unit, and just days later announced plans to spin off the entire division as a standalone company.
And here is that excellent piece of corporate history we highlighted earlier. When they announced the new company name in August 2014, they called it CDK Global.
And the name itself is an acronym for the 3 main corporate building blocks they had acquired and built upon: Cobalt, Dealer Services, and Carriage.
A nice touch of corporate tribute.
It is, but shedding a division of that size always comes with market skepticism. The financial repercussion was immediate.
Both S&P and Moody's, the major credit rating agencies, downgraded ADP's rating to AA in April 2014 following the divestiture.
That's a critical detail that needs context. Why the downgrade if they were focusing on the core business?
That's what I was wondering.
Credit rating agencies value diversification. Even though the Dealer Services unit was non-core to HR, it was a profitable, stable business operating in a completely different market.
The automotive market.
Right. By divesting it, ADP increased its concentration risk, meaning their overall financial health became more singularly dependent on the performance of the human capital management sector.
So the rating agencies viewed that concentration as a slight increase in risk, hence the downgrade.
Exactly.
So the 2 spin-offs, Broadridge in finance and CDK in automotive, perfectly illustrate a 7-decade journey of strategic focus. ADP shed 2 highly successful, multi-billion-dollar side businesses to fully consolidate its identity as the world's premier HR, payroll, and PEO giant.
A fascinating structural redefinition.
Okay, so we've established ADP's massive presence in payroll and HR management, but this sheer scale has thrust the company into a unique, almost semi-public role.
A role as an essential provider of macro-level economic intelligence.
Because they are processing paychecks for 20% of the U.S. workforce, they are sitting on the largest, freshest, and most comprehensive private data set about employment available in the country.
This is where their private business function intersects directly with public policy. The data they curate and publish, known as the ADP National Employment Report, has evolved into a key economic release.
And it's frequently utilized by financial analysts and economists as a vital source of private sector employment data, often complementing or offering an early read on the official reports from the BLS.
United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, yeah.
And the unique selling proposition that gives the ADP report its market power is speed.
Speed. They are processing this data instantaneously as a function of their core business, not through surveys and delayed compilation like the government.
And as a result, the ADP National Employment Report is traditionally launched the day before the official BLS reports.
For trading desks, policy committees, and economists trying to gain a market edge or refine their forecasts, having that crucial snapshot of employment growth 24 hours earlier is an enormous advantage.
A high-stakes advantage. And the stakes are so high that ADP is continually invested in the methodology to ensure its rigor.
Our sources confirm a major shift occurred in 2022 when the report was completely redesigned. And this redesign wasn't done internally. It was done in collaboration with Stanford's Digital Economy Lab.
That collaboration underscores their commitment to accuracy and relevance. It shows they treat the data not just as a marketing tool, but as a rigorous, academically sound economic indicator.
And this partnership helps them incorporate modern methodologies, account for things like the changing gig economy structure, and refine their seasonal adjustments in a way that truly reflects the current labor market complexity.
And it's important to note this commitment to external rigor wasn't new. Before Stanford, ADP relied on another major external partner, Moody's Analytics, for many years to help structure and analyze the data.
So this consistent use of external, high-level economic expertise highlights the seriousness with which they approach this public function, and the relevance of this private data extends directly to the highest levels of U.S. economic policy.
Our sources indicate that as early as 2018, ADP employment and earnings data were actively utilized by the Federal Reserve.
That's highly significant. The Federal Reserve, the entity responsible for setting national monetary policy, controlling inflation, and managing unemployment, was relying on proprietary corporate data.
They used this data stream not just for the headline job count, but to track things like private sector wage inflation and hiring momentum in the days leading up to their crucial policy meetings.
Which brings us to the latest, most fascinating piece of context that challenges this cozy relationship. The reversal noted in our source material.
Right. In mid-2025, ADP stopped providing this crucial private jobs data to the Federal Reserve.
It's just stopped.
Hold on. Why would they stop providing data that gives them such high-level visibility and credibility? If the Federal Reserve is using your numbers, that's a priceless endorsement.
Well, there are several potential factors, though the sources only confirm the cessation itself. One possibility is simply the value of the data. ADP may have decided that providing that proprietary high-frequency stream to a public entity diminished its competitive advantage in the open market, particularly if their redesigned report proved to be more predictive than the BLS reports.
Or perhaps there were regulatory implications. If the Fed relies on it so heavily, there might be pressure for ADP to release their data methodology or adhere to certain standards that they'd prefer to keep proprietary.
It's a classic tension between maintaining the secrecy of a competitive business asset versus the public good served by economic transparency.
And we also have to consider the context of the government shutdown referenced in the sources.
Good point. During periods when official government data, like the BLS reports, are delayed or unavailable, the Federal Reserve's reliance on private substitutes like ADP's report spikes dramatically.
So this level of reliance might make ADP feel too central to public policy, which could be an uncomfortable position for a private, publicly traded company seeking to maximize shareholder value.
So ADP is currently deciding where that boundary lies between being a successful private company and acting as an essential national infrastructure.
They're not just issuing paychecks for a fifth of the country, they are providing a crucial, real-time pulse of the American labor market, a pulse that policymakers were relying on, and are now, as of mid-2025, having to replace or supplement elsewhere.
That is the true depth of their influence. The ability of a private corporate entity to start, refine, and then potentially withdraw such a vital data stream raises profound questions about where economic truth resides in the 21st century.
What an extraordinary journey. We began with Henry and Joe Taub manually calculating deductions in a Paterson, New Jersey office in 1949.
And we conclude with a $20 billion multinational corporation that moves market expectations, informs economic policy, and manages the entire contingent workforce.
Let's review the key takeaways for you, the listener, to ensure you walk away with the distilled insight.
First, the core of this story is technological transformation. ADP successfully pivoted from manual labor and punch cards to mainframe batch processing, and finally, to sophisticated cloud-based human capital management and PEO services.
Second, their sustained growth and dominance were powered by dual engines. That lucrative, low-risk revenue generated by float in the early decades, combined with a highly sophisticated strategic acquisition playbook.
A playbook designed to capture new market segments, like their crucial push into the gig economy with WorkMarket.
Third, we saw how the company structurally redefined itself by shedding successful non-core assets. The major spinoffs, Broadridge Financial Solutions in 2007 and the automotive tech unit, CDK Global, in 2014, were critical actions that concentrated the company's focus.
Even if the subsequent loss of diversification caused a short-term downgrade in their credit ratings.
And finally, we discussed ADP's unique and highly critical role in providing national employment data used by policymakers. That fast, private snapshot of labor growth is immensely valuable.
And the recent decision in mid-2025 to cease providing that specific data stream to the Federal Reserve is a defining signal of the shifting boundaries between corporate proprietary holdings and public policy reliance.
And that leads us directly to our final provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive.
Given that ADP was founded strictly to provide a fundamental private business service payroll, but now, through its sheer size, technological complexity, and proprietary data holdings, plays an essential public role in generating macroeconomic indicators, what are the long-term implications?
When a private company can decide, as ADP did recently, to stop providing a data stream that was vital to the central banking system,
It raises profound questions about the ownership, accessibility, and potential monetization of the foundational data that defines national economic truth.
a heavy, complex thought to end on, but one that is essential for understanding the modern corporate ecosystem. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the extraordinary history and economic power of automatic data processing, Inc.
We hope you walk away well-informed and ready to connect those crucial historical and economic dots.
We'll see you next time.